In this topic, we're going to talk about another technique. It's called personas. Unlike the other 4 techniques we've covered in the previous topics, it's more of a deliverable that's going to help you solidify and summarize your understanding of your users and help you better communicate to the wider audience. A persona is based not on one user, but based on a group of users. It basically describes an archetype person that represents a wider group of users with similar attributes. It's a great reference material that you can use throughout the rest of your user-centered design process. Basically, a persona is a document. Okay? It has certain attributes about the person and some information, goals, objectives, and pain points. The way you use a persona is basically as a way of talking to that individual. As a designer, you can basically talk to the persona. So let's call the persona Jane. So it's a great way where the user and the designer can get together and have a conversation. So as a designer, you can pretty much look at every feature of your website and think to yourself, how would Jane use this feature? Or what does Jane think of this page? Now, there are 2 different types of personas, primary and secondary. As the name suggests, primary are the most common users of your website. Okay, so they're the ones that you can pretty much guarantee will use your website most of the time. However, secondary personas are also important. So they have attributes that are similar to the primary personas, but also have some attributes that are different. If you had to really focus on your users, you would probably focus on the primary only. However, if you wanted to widen the design of your website to cover more users, you could then include secondary personas. The brilliant thing with personas, they can come in a range of formats. As I said, they could be in a document, for example, A3 landscape. You can print them out on little cards and distribute them. You could even print them out in real life, cut them out and stick it around your offices or around the floor, so as people walk past, they can actually think of the persona and start to think of them as a real person. So let's talk about the types of information you would include in a persona. It's really important to include a realistic picture. That helps the wider audience to affiliate with the person. Give the persona a name, call her Jane, and give her a bit of an age so people have some understanding of the demographics. Another recommended information is a personal quote. It helps to give Jane a bit of character and personality. Don't forget the bio. Just a little background about Jane, what she does, where she's come from, where she's going. And finally, goals and pain points, specifically around the website that you're designing. This helps target your design focus. Some of the additional information you might want to cover in a persona could include education. What has the person studied and what are they planning to study? Maybe their salary. That might impact how they behave when on your website. You might also want to include their technology experience. Do they have a laptop? Do they have a smartphone? How often do they use it? That could be key to your design. Now, persona is not mandatory for the user-centered design process. End of the day, what personas are doing is giving you a summary of who your users are. And it's a great way for you to use it as a reference point throughout your project. Now, you may decide not to do personas or produce them. That's absolutely okay. But it's fundamental that you understand who your users are, what their needs are, and what are their behaviors when online and when using your product or service. Now remember, personas are not market segmentation, so they're not there to compete with marketing material that marketing departments may have. They're not necessarily about consumer behavior, but they're more so about behavior of the individual, their goals and objectives. The 2 information can work together and often do. Let's discuss some of the strengths and weaknesses for personas. One of the strengths to writing personas is that they're cheap and easy. You can do them very quickly. They can be in multiple formats for multiple occasions. Multiple audiences. You can target them at your stakeholders, developers, your design team, your project team. And they're fantastic at giving focus to decisions needing to be made. However, the downsides are there might be some inaccuracies in your personas, so they might not be as true as you would like them to be. Also, they may have some conflicting information in terms of marketing, and your marketing department might argue with you about market segmentation. And finally, you might just be biased. In effect, you have written a story, so it might not be as true as you want it to be. So in this topic, I've covered personas, why you should use them, the fact that you can use them throughout the design process of the user-centered design methodology, and the fact that they're very cheap and easy to produce. So in the next topic, I'm going to talk about how you can actually communicate the findings of your users with your wider stakeholders.